Hey everyone, and thank you for joining today's Providence AWS user group meeting. And today we're going to have VJ from AWS talking about building a terminology mapping solution using Amazon Neptune. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, VJ. Thank you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Just a small correction, right? I am not part of AWS anymore.
Oh,
I'm an
okay.
I'm an ex-AWS. I work for Oracle now.
Oracle. Okay, even
Yeah.
better. Okay, no problem. Thank you for the correction.
So just to give a little bit of backgrounds, I have been in IT for 20 years, mostly in healthcare and retail domain. I used to be working with AWS 3 years ago. I was a solutions architect, and that's how I know Tom. And after AWS, I joined Oracle, and I'm a principal cloud architect at Oracle, doing almost similar thing in healthcare vertical. So my customers are in the healthcare, just that we are using OCI services, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, not the AWS. That is the only difference. All right. So I'm going to go through, this is one of the blogs that I authored when I was in AWS. And what we are going to discuss today is what we did in this blog, what is it about, and what solution or what use case it solves using AWS services. I'm going to be sharing my screen, and if there are any questions, please feel free to ask me feel free to interrupt and ask whenever appropriate. Is everybody very well versed with AWS services here, or is that something I have to go through in detail while I go through my blog? Just wanted to get a feel of where people stand.
Yeah, I was going to say for me, I'm a migration architect, and MGN. I know these other thing, but Neptune not too much. So everybody else can chime in since we have a small group. That's all I know.
Okay. All right. So I just shared my screen. I hope everybody can see the screen. Um,
Yes.
what we are going to discuss today is that the use case that was solved using Amazon Neptune. There are a couple of services that were used. Mainly it was services that are related to AI in AWS and Amazon Neptune, which is a graph database that AWS offers. So we is anybody from healthcare here, healthcare field, so I can simplify what I'm talking about? I think I'm going to
No,
no.
I'm
Okay.
comfortable with AWS, getting familiar with Neptune, but not healthcare.
Okay, sounds good. So I used to work for a small company, which is called Human Care Systems, and we had a that company used to basically that they had a software which was called Patient Support Program software. Now these type of uh, programs are enrolled by customers when they are on some clinical trial drug. When patients are on a clinical trial drug, which is a drug that could have side effects, that's a very new drug that has been introduced by pharmaceutical company. It could have some side effects on patient, and that's the drug study that the pharma company is conducting, right? So what happens is whenever patients are on these patient support programs, if they if there are any adverse effect or any reaction to that drug, or anything that they feel weird after taking the drug, they're supposed to report it to the nurses lines or doctor's office who prescribe that drug to them. And these type of events, whenever there are some adverse reactions to the drug. It could be as simple as headache. It could be, feeling little nauseous, anything, or having fever. They have to report it back to the prescribing doctor's office or whoever is the prescriber. And this is called adverse event. Now, this adverse event, I'm just actually describing the life cycle of this. This adverse event, once it is reported, it is supposed to be reported to the pharma company that manufactured the drug as well as FDA within given amount of time. There is 14-day period, which is very critical, and this has to be reported back in this 14-day period for the patient safety as well as the drug safety. And that gives an idea to manufacture the pharma company if they have to make any changes or anything needs to be altered in that drug. So this is really the life cycle of the drug which is introduced in clinical trial. Any adverse reaction that patient reports, it's called adverse event. And uh, this whole process is called pharmacovigilance, which meaning that you're monitoring the safety of the drug and how it affects patients, and the patient reporting it back to the pharma company. Now, this whole process and the timeline is very critical here. You have 14 days to report it back. Otherwise, there are legal implications. What I'm going to talk about in today's session is how this whole workflow and this whole process can be automated and how it can be made more efficient using AWS AI services. Most of them are AI-based services. There are some non-AI, but I'm just going to go through the services that are used here. Any questions so far? I'm going to take that as a no, and I'll go ahead. So let's quickly go through the architecture before I start describing the services. And I don't have, typically whenever I present this, I do have a perfectly working demo. I don't have it right now because I don't have my AWS account anymore. I used to have it set up and I could actually demo the whole process. However, if anybody is curious in trying, if you want to try it out, you can definitely use this launch tag button that takes you to CloudFormation. And if you have a AWS free tier account or you have your own account, you can launch this tag in your account and it will create the entire resource. All the resources were created and you can test it out over there. So let's quickly go through the architecture diagram that is you, and I'm going to describe this in detail, and then let's see how services are getting used. So let's assume that I'm a patient. I am going to call some call center or some nurses line where I'm going to say that my name is VJ and I'm not feeling well today. I have a little bit of headache. I have nausea and I'm a little disoriented, and this is the drug I'm taking. And just to elaborate more, this is just a sample use case, but this technology or this architecture can very well be used in lot of other use cases, and I'm going to describe at the end of the conversation. I will also list some of the similar use cases that we can use it for. So it's a typical call center scenario. We do have, if you look at the left side of the diagram, we have number one, which is Amazon Connect. Amazon Connect is the call center service that is provided by AWS. It's very easy to set up. Once you set up the service, there is a number that is kind of, it gets published, and that's the number you would it's like a regular number, or it can be a 1-800 number that you have. It's a scalable service and you can call this number in order to it's a basically call center setup. So once we call on to, let's say I call the number, I am the patient, I call this number, uh, my conversation it can get recorded, or you can record it, and this recorded conversation, it gets automatically, it gets saved into S3 bucket. Now, S3 bucket is the object storage that AWS has to offer. So Amazon Connect has configuration where we can say that store my recording into a given bucket and it will store it there. We can configure this. For this use case, I have used call center as the source. However, this whole process can be done. Either it could be a call center, it could be an email which is coming from patient, it could be a fax. So because our source is right now call center, however, parallelly to this call center source, which is number one, I could have an email coming, I could have uh, a fax coming, and all of them can be stored in number two, which is my S3 bucket. So once my recording for this use case, once the recording gets stored in S3 bucket, we can trigger an event which is going to, this recording is basically, it's a voice file. It's an MP3 file that gets stored in the S3 bucket. We can trigger, once it is stored, we can trigger an event and attach an event here where a series of functions or series of lambda functions will be called. And I've used a step function workflow here. Step function is nothing but it's a workflow that can be created where you can chain series of lambda functions that do different tasks. So in this particular scenario, we do have, first is the transcribe function. What transcribe does is it converts your voice to text. So my voice file, which is saved in S3, it's going to be converted to a text file. Once this is converted to the text, which is step number 3.1, it is then fed as an input to Amazon Comprehend Medical. Amazon Comprehend Medical, it is a NLP service. It's a natural language processing service, which identifies or detects the named entity and the relationship entity, any medical entity in my text. For example, if I have a word called, let's say I have a word called symptoms, I have a word called diagnosis, any like a first name, last name, all these entities will be detected using Amazon Comprehend Medical. The output of Comprehend Medical is then passed to another Lambda function, which saves this data. It's going to save the data to Neptune database. Now, is everybody familiar with what a graph database is?
Dwight, I've heard of it, but not really.
Okay. So graph is basically a kind of a relationship database where you can have a leaf and you can have multiple nodes. So you can have basically one entity connected to another, and you can query this using GraphQL, and there is a language called Gremlin. You can use it's up to you what language you can use, but these are some of the languages that are provided. Now, what we store in the graph database here is basically, let me give you an example. So Comprehend Medical, let's say it detects a word called anxiety, or it detects a word called fever, because Comprehend Medical is a service that's going to detect all the medical related entities from your text. So if I am a patient and I have called in saying that I have fever and I have headache because of the drug that I have taken, these entities will be detected using the Comprehend Medical service. Now, what we are storing in Neptune, and this is something that we store ahead of time, what we are storing in Neptune database is what's called the ontologies. Ontologies is basically nothing but ICD codes. So every every condition, every medical condition that we have in the healthcare field, it has ICD code. And what I'm storing here, this is stored like pre-populated using a standard medical library. It's called UMLS, and that I have populated in the Neptune database. Now, the way it looks, the way you can look at it as is, once I have this word headache, right? That word I'm going to search in the Neptune database using exact word, and I'm going to get all the related nodes for that word. That's how the graph database is used. So I will get the actual label. So I'm going to get ICD code. I'm going to get what is the, I forgot what it is called exactly, but I think we call it normal label. Then there is a medical term. So for example, we may call it, normal label would be fever, but let's say medical term could be hypothermia or something. I'm just giving an example. Every condition has a medical term that also gets stored. And this information is basically grabbed from the graph database, and it is brought back and it is stored in the JSON. Just so that, just a note, everything that is going from one function to another, so 3.1 to 3.2 to 3.4, everything that is flowing through, it's a JSON. So input is a JSON, output is also a JSON. So in step 3.3, what we are doing is we are iterating through every entity that we found in using Comprehend Medical Service, and we are going to get ICD code, we are going to get the actual medical term, medical label, and the normal label. We are going to grab it using graph database and insert it back into that JSON. Once we do that, this is then forwarded to, and when we do this, we are also going to, if I find, so let's say headache is something I have, I reported headache. And if I find information related to headache in this ontology data, then I'm going to flag this entity as adverse event, meaning that the patient did have some adverse reaction, is how I'm going to flag it as. So it's like a Boolean flag in the JSON, and I'm going to say that headache was an adverse event. And anything that I find in this graph database, I'm going to report as an adverse event. I see a raised hand here. Tom, do you have a question?
Yeah, Vijay, thank you. So I guess my aha here when I was leading into this Zoom, the Neptune is really just storing a pre-existing database for all the medical terminology and the ontology of it.
Yes.
And you're using it as a reference lookup. Is it exact word lookup, or are you just trusting Comprehend is already in sync with that database?
No, this is exact word lookup. You can tweak it. So when you use GraphQL, I think I have used Gremlin. I think whenever you use Graph, you can tweak your query, but I am doing exact lookup here.
Okay. And then I guess what I'm asking you, just because transcribe leads into comprehend does a good job of, not like you have a lot of large language models could be doing data enrichment and they could come up with different responses. I'm assuming comprehend has a kind of a tight shot group on that. Like they're very specific.
Right, yes. So this was developed, I think, back in 2019, and we didn't have LLMs. I mean, it wasn't that popular. Now, if you ask me, this whole thing can be done differently. We could use LLM model, and I'm sure that gives, it will be more optimized. But Comprehend Medical, yes, it's a trained model. And it will detect all the medical entities. And like you said, it's going to go and get the data from Neptune database, and then add that additional information into my JSON for a given keyword that Comprehend Medical finds.
Thanks.
All right. So once we find that keyword in in the database, we are going to flag it as adverse event, and this data is then stored in Elasticsearch. Elasticsearch, Amazon Elasticsearch is a data. It used to be open source. Elasticsearch is an open source database, but now which could be used for very efficiently, which can scan and search log files. Typically, that's where we use it. Uh, Amazon Elasticsearch is exactly same. It is very well integrated with a visual tool called Kibana, which is very seamless integration. So once we store this data into Elasticsearch, it excuse me, it can be visualized using Kibana dashboard. And I can't show it here, but I think I do have some example. Yeah, right here I have shown how it looks. There is a, this is how it looks in Kibana. So once you store this in Kibana, once you store it in Elasticsearch, that this is the word cloud, which will give you what were these are all the ontologies, or these are the words that were detected by the Comprehend Medical. So let's say headache was something, bloated, anxiety, dizzy, fever. So this is a word cloud. Pie chart gives me information on how many adverse event versus non-adverse events. And the third view that I have here is it's a plain JSON. So if you really need to get information about the detailed data, that is what we are listing here. Now, how this whole thing can be used and how critical it is for this adverse event reporting and similar use cases. And I'm also going to go through the use cases that which are non-healthcare related, but very similar. Because we said that whenever there is an adverse event, it is very time sensitive. It is important that it gets processed in a timely manner. So typically, to complete this workflow, uh, the way this gets utilized, or the way this gets used is, if I have an adverse event. So let's say if I have a record, if I have a set of record which has adverse event flag equal to true, then I'm going to send it to a different queue versus anything which is a non-adverse event data. I will send it to different queue for processing. Anything that is adverse event, I want it to get processed ASAP so that it gets reported back within the stipulated time to FDA. That is how the entire workflow can be completed, and this can be automated. I'm not going to say 100%. We still need manual intervention or manual review to make sure the accuracy is right. And the good thing is that Comprehend Medical and Transcribe both have confidence score, and we are picking up data in Lambda function where we are iterating through the entities. We are picking data where the confidence score is greater than 80%. So it's not like we are picking up all the entities that are detected. Only the ones where confidence score is greater than certain percent is getting picked up. So this is how we automate the whole flow in order to expedite the process of reporting adverse event. We can use this very similar process. I mean, this was just a use case that healthcare customers were interested in. And I personally worked in one of my previous jobs where this was a problem. This was a business case, which was a problem. But a very similar use case where while I was working with AWS, I have seen where when you have a customer, like, where you want to complain about something, like let's say I'm a customer, I call customer service and I want to complain about a product, or I'm not happy, I'm frustrated customer. Based on my interaction or my voice recording, getting the sentiment or converting it from voice to text, getting the sentiment out of my text. If I am let's say if there are certain words, like if I say, I'm going to, let's say I'm going to change the career. Let's say I'm going to change my service to from T-Mobile to Verizon, something like that. Let's say I'm a T-Mobile customer service, and I call. I'm very frustrated with the service I'm getting. There is some issue with my service. I call in saying that I'm going to change. I'm really frustrated. It can be detected at instead of using Amazon Comprehend Medical, we can use only Amazon Comprehend, which is a NLP service for detecting sentiment as well as any entities. So non-medical entities. So once we use that, if we determine that customer sentiment, he is frustrated, we can direct the workflow either to, we can offer to talk to the agent. So this can be totally automated. We can have like a bot talking. We can have an automated response. And the moment we hear something about customer not happy or frustrated, we actually can give it to a customer service agent. This helps with the productivity. This helps with uh, really not reducing the workforce, I'm going to say, but it helps with the productivity of call center and interjecting the agent at the right time, so we make the customer happy, and also trying to automate the workflow. That's how this technology can be used. So the example I gave is for adverse event reporting, but the exact same set of services can be used in a call center technology, or it can be used if you get fax or email. So like I said, step number 2 could be either a voice recording, or it could be a fax from my customer, it could be an email, it could be any type of source of data. And based on that, instead of using transcribe, I would use some another service where I extract the text from the source of data and then do the same processing. Any questions?
I was just going to ask how any of the new Gen AI, products kind of could be used for anything.
I'm sure they can be used.
Mhm.
Definitely, I'm trying to think how. So and I'm going to be very honest,
Mhm.
I haven't kept myself abreast with
Yeah.
all the AWS services which are recently, like we have there that have been introduced recently,
Mhm.
because I'm focusing more on Oracle services now.
Yep.
But we can definitely use Gen AI here. Like the example would be the ones that I have seen.
Yep.
We do have chatbots like an EHR software. Let's say the typical EHR softwares that are very popular are Epic and Cerner, which get used at doctor's office. And both these softwares, or both the product owners, they're working on introducing or integrating it with chatbots, where we are minimizing doctors' effort to take notes. So instead of doctors typing the notes, uh, like typing manually, they can just talk it out, or they can just record, and then they can get converted into into the text. And a chat bot can be used, or typically used by the doctor. So this is something that's still work in progress. Doctors, instead of going through different screens and trying to find what the patient's medical history is, etc., they can literally use a command saying that give me the like the red flags in patient's history, or does patient have diabetes, something like that, in a form of a question. And then this Gen AI model, the Gen AI technology, can go and grab the results, and it can present it in a visualization format to the doctor. That's one use case which I'm aware of. And this is specific to healthcare I'm talking about. The other use case which I am aware of, and not related to AWS technology, it's a very generic use case where in clinical trials, when we have to do patient matching, let's say like I want a sample set of patients where patient is above, his age is above 40 and he is not diabetic and he doesn't have cholesterol. That's my criteria, let's say. Typically, whenever I have done such type of sampling in my previous jobs, we have always used SQL to get the data sample from the database. But with the newer technology, with the Gen AI APIs that AWS and even all the cloud providers, not just AWS, they're presenting, this can be done very easily using the matching features that they provide, in the sense that you don't need to query it. You do need to query, but the queries are more efficient, and you can say that give me a patient who has similar attribute to patient A. So let's say I have a patient A who is 40 years old, non-diabetic, no previous medical history. I can say, give me a patient who is similar, who is matching this patient, and this Gen AI API is going to give me all these patients. So that's a newer technology that I am aware of that can definitely be used in these use cases.
Can I add something there?
Say that again?
Can I add something?
Yeah, sure.
So, and maybe this is just a little bit closer. So just looking at your workflow here, you got an S3 put object on your S3 that triggers the Lambda. That Lambda triggers the workflow. So, okay, so let's say it's not a medical document, just as an example, but it is a voice recording. So you still use Amazon Transcribe, and let's just say it puts a text document back into another S3 bucket. And depending upon what's going on, I mean, I'm making it up here, but instead of running Amazon Comprehend or Comprehend Medical, you could do some type of Bedrock or large language model inference on it, where you're giving it, hey, I want you to extract this information. The use case I'm playing with right now is a news article where I'm asking in different types of inference calls. So the first inference call is identify the factual events of this story in the location, city, state, or province and country. That's one, as a JSON object return. And then another one is identify the topic and semantic topic for this news article. And then a third inference is identify all of the direct quotes in this article and give me the person cited and the organization they're associated with. So one article going through 3 separate inference calls is now getting 3 separate JSON objects, enriching a potential Amazon Neptune data set. That was my interest behind this call, is using it as a data enrichment / extraction tool.
Got it. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good example. Any other comments or anything that anybody has any ideas that we can modify this?
So I have a quick question. Good evening. So my quick question is that during the entire course of this life cycle from step 1 to step 4, how does Amazon Neptune does like streamline the data for me, and does it create any alerts, or like in AWS itself you have like a cloud watch. It's easy for someone to build a cloud watch rather than you going for like a Kibana or Elastic. So how does it like, just I want to understand, because in my perspective, like, does it create any alerts? As you said, like most of the data of the patients are critical. That do you create any alerts? Do you notify anyone, or in the throughout the journey? How does it in the course of the data? Does it get reported to anyone, like individuals? You said it would be reported to CDC and to the somebody like a manufacturing company, how does these individuals get notified, and how the data gets streamlined, and how does it really help any, like for instance, one of the use case you gave, like help any other businesses. Could you please explain that?
Sure, yeah. So that is not inbuilt in this workflow, but since we have the data in Elasticsearch and there is an indicator, it's a Boolean indicator saying that, excuse me, adverse event true or false, you can use data in whichever way you want. So basically, if you, let's say if you want to alert somebody, what we could do is at step 4, where Elasticsearch, that's where the data is stored. What we can do is add there another function which uh, which basically takes all the records that has adverse event equal to true, and it puts it in a different JMS queue. You can put it in a queue, and that queue is going to be processed by another function. So a lambda function will have to be added. And then in that lambda function, we can alert an email group, or there could be a function which actually creates the PDF, automatic PDF using the data, because you have all the patient information here. You have you can grab the patient information wherever it is stored based on the patient ID. And then you can merge that information with what is there in the Elasticsearch. And you can automate that whole process of creating PDF using another Lambda function. And you can extend it, like, you can email it to, you can either use SNS service, which is the emailing service, or you can put it in a different JMS queue, which could be processed, which is like a priority queue versus non-priority queue. So yes, you will have to add few more lambdas here, but the point is that we have data which is flagged. That's what we need, right? How we extend that is really totally up to the use case and how you want to make use of it. But once you have that data which is flagged, that would be your foundation. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
No problem.
And just to clarify, when they query Amazon Neptune, is that what's telling them yes or no on the adverse event based on what they find as a result?
Yes. So what I'm doing here is, so you guys, I mean, there is a, if you want to see what's stored in Neptune, it's there in the blog. I will
Yeah.
share this link. What we are storing UMLS database. It's a UMLS data, which is really the ontology. I can actually show you. Let me show it to you in during the end of at the end of the session. So that data is what gets stored here, and what we are doing is, like, where is my diagram? We are searching by, let's say, keyword anxiety. So if I find all the information related to anxiety into the Neptune database, if there is a hit for that, I'm grabbing all the information, all the related information, and then I'm bringing it back to my query result, and I'm adding it to my JSON for that particular keyword that is found. And what we are storing is basically, it's a standard UMLS data that is provided by CMS. I think it is CMS, or UMLS is the one that provides it. It's publicly available, and it's all the medical terminology. I'm going to actually, give me 1 second. I will, let's see if I can quickly search it, how it looks, so you'll get an idea of what that data looks like. Why is this? Now I can search. I know there is a process to access this data. I wanted to see if we can just, I can show it like a, yeah. This is the one. I just want to see if we can see a sample here. So you do have to have. This is the one where I've downloaded it from, but there is a, yeah, let's see.
Yeah.
So basically, once you request a license, you do.
VJ, I'm okay.
You're
I
okay.
get, I get your point. I mean, it was an external third party.
Yeah, exactly.
Data set
It's
that
a
you loaded.
standard.
Yeah.
It's basically it stores the ICD code for, yeah, something like this. It will store ICD code for a given condition. Then it's going to store the actual name and the medical name. There is a, I do have it in the blog. What exactly is stored. So if you go through the blog, or if you launch this, the
Yeah.
cloud formation, it's going to automatically get set up. Any other questions? Let me see. I may have a sample here actually, what we are doing. It's just a step function now. Okay. This is the actual, this is how the JSON looks like. Yeah, actually, I did not even have to go there. So medical condition, this all comes from the graph database. Symptom and the DX name, diagnosis name. This is something that I bring back. So basically, if my entity that was detected by Comprehend Medical was anxiety, I get the diagnosis name, I get the actual medical name, I get the ICD code. All that information is grabbed from Neptune, the graph database. Anything else? Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Yeah, it's good.
That's pretty much what I had to share.
Okay. Yeah, so and put I know we have your blog, but if you could put the link to it in the chat.
Yeah, I will do
Thank
it
you.
right now.
Thank you. Any other questions for Vijay? Excellent. All right. Hey, Vijay, thank you very much for presenting today.
No problem.
Was
It's my
expecting a little
pleasure.
more people, but hey, I appreciate Tom and Arvind to come along with us. And then I think Tom will post this on the YouTube channel anyway. So thank you very much. We appreciate it.
It's my pleasure to present.
Yep.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
we'll grab you. We'll reach out for any other topics that you might want to present later. Okay.
Sure, thanks. And
right.
would you let me,
Mhm.
you or Tom, let me know once it is posted on the
Yeah.
YouTube?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we will.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks,
All right.
everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you everyone for joining. Have a good rest of the night. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you all.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.